Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
So much, Darla. We are so grateful, number one, to be here and honored to be speaking to you ladies, because we know that every single one of you on the call today is a leader wherever you are in your families, in your communities, and leadership within your space in your office. And so we thank you for taking time out of your day. We are RamLea partners, Connection Growth Corporate Coaching. And like I said, we're just honored to be here and have some of your time today, because we know today is all about you. I'm Ryan Graham, and this is Cristy Swint, my business partner. We joined in this partnership a couple of years ago and been coaching individually and on our own with women and men, executive coaching, personal coaching. And we decided to take our business inside organizations. It's been such a delight to do that with teams and with people. And so we're honored to be here speaking to you guys. So for the next 45 minutes, though, we are not speaking to the team, we're speaking to you. And what we really want you to know is our heart is for understanding ourselves better and how we can use that influence to impact who and what we are and the influence that we have in our communities, homes, and our organizations. So I want to share a little bit, the title of our slide is actually called, our title of our workshop is called Own Your Influence Through Connection Growth. And connection growth is, you'll hear it and we'll speak of it a lot throughout this workshop, but this is about the unspoken power of authenticity. I love the story because I used to run home every afternoon at 3 o'clock and watch Oprah Winfrey. And I don't know if any of you were fans. I'm still a big fan. But I love her. And I love that Oprah went from this local news anchor to this global connector. And when she was really starting off at this local news channel, she was criticized. She was criticized for being too emotional. She was even demoted from her news role. And Oprah really leaned into that. She really leaned into what made her unique throughout that. And obviously what we saw is her ability to connect with people on that true, authentic level really helped people to understand that they were seen, they were valued, they were understood. It was this natural empathy and curiosity towards people. So she didn't just interview her guests. She was ultimately connected to who they were. And she wanted the viewers to understand that too. And I think that's the beautiful thing. So each of you, remember, is here today because you have influence that has been cultivated and cultivating into where you are that will impact generations to come. And like I mentioned, this is in your business. This is in your position at work. This is in your home and in your communities. So our goal today is to really illuminate inside of you, if it's not already there, or even shine it brighter to your authenticity that really profoundly shapes those spaces where you lead and where you serve. So before we will get started, I want to share what our connection growth defined is. Connection growth is actually the process of becoming authentically aware of who we are in order to strengthen how we relate to the world around us. So it's taken that personal awareness of who we are and translating it to that situational awareness. And we'll learn a little bit about that because we all have perception. We all have perception of where we're sitting, how we grew up, all the things. So sometimes it's gaining that new awareness or that new perspective that helps us to better understand not only our personal awareness, but situational awareness. And so this is just helping us to see maybe through a new lens as we enter into the remainder of this day and then as days to come. So we're going to hit 3 key objectives. We feel like it's important when we have what we're aiming for. We're going to identify those root causes and challenges. Oftentimes we don't understand what is it in society and what is it that socially can impact who and what we are. And so we're going to talk about some of those barriers and challenges first, so we have a better idea of maybe where we're coming from, what we've seen, what we've experienced that can shape us. And then we're going to actually discuss internal messaging and a little bit about generational messaging, because if we don't understand why I feel this way or why I do this or why I step forward in this, and we don't understand potentially what generation we grow up in and what has shaped us, then how are we going to utilize that from a place of power? And so we want to really show you and kind of draw points to that so that we can understand better what that can do and how it can impact our future steps. And then lastly, we'll take you through implementing our connection growth approach in all areas. And these are just tangible ways that you can literally apply what we feel like is at the core of saying, okay, how can I step forward in understanding all of this? And then what's the application to help me move forward every single time I'm taking a step forward and standing in the power and the influence that I have today to impact future generations and my colleagues.
Yeah, that's good. So in order for us to understand how we are being affected as a society as a whole, we have to look at some statistics, and these are staggering and astounding. In 2022, 50.6 million people quit their jobs. That represents all sectors, all industry. And we discovered that 39% of those folks who left did so due to bad management or a toxic workplace. So those who are returning to the workplace are showing up at their jobs, but they're not actually working. And you guys are probably familiar with this is referred to as quiet quitting, and it has affected not only inside the company, but even at home and in our community at large. A combination of all of these factors have led to a mental health care crisis. Raise your hand if you are looking to find some emotional support as you're going through all that we've walked through with the pandemic and just working from home and working back at home and then working hybrid and coming back into the office. 86% of our current workforce agree that mental health care should be addressed within the workplace. And it's reported, as you probably already know, we're going to spend a third of our life at work, which means that mental health in the workplace is a huge contributing factor to our society as a whole and our ability to step forward in our true authenticity and influence as we were created to do so. So how do companies address this societal impact? And most companies, as would any very reputable business, they're going to engage the problem by looking at spreadsheets, data, and P&L statements. And these are valuable tools when you're trying to assess the health of a company. But unfortunately, it just leans into numbers. And the most important part of what creates a business's health is the people within the four walls of that organization. So our goal then becomes, how do we humanize a solution to the societal need that we're facing? And this is where our work comes in. Ryan and I have a heart to prioritize people. We believe that the human spirit is the most important part of any successful community, society, business, home, church, faith, family, and beyond. It's the standard by which we operate. The human spirit is the standard by which we operate in both our personal and our professional lives. It's what makes us who we are, and it empowers us to bring our unique gifts and talents to the table. And we consider this to be our most valuable resource. So if we circle back to the connection growth definition that Ryan mentioned earlier, we see that valuing the human spirit is the heart of that connection growth. The connection growth, as we said before, is the process of becoming authentically aware of who we are in order to strengthen how we relate to the world around us. Today, we're going to look at it through the lens of I. So even though we are a collective, we want you to put the glasses on from the lens of I. How do I become authentically aware so that I can strengthen how I relate to the world around me? It's how we take personal awareness of our own lenses and our own worldviews and translate it to others in our situational awareness. And it's taking that perception, that perspective and perception, and gaining new insights and new understandings as we go along. So
we've identified the barriers, obviously. And I think it's important that we know those things that are coming at us every single day. When Cristy and I went back and we're researching some of the stats, we were even blown away by just crazy amounts of things that we don't even know that we're inundated with unconsciously each and every day. And so it's important to just have that in your back pocket always, to know what happens year after year sometimes that really can feel like it can pull us back if we allow it. So what we're doing now is we're pressing forward. We're going to understand some of that internal messaging. that generational messaging that can impact our ability to actually connect authentically with other people. And that connection is so powerful. So we're going to start with a concept first that I don't think is unusual for anybody to understand or to know if you've lived any part of life, seasons of life, if you have kids, if you have parents, if you've eaten dinner with anyone around a dinner table, colleagues, if you've walked through a global pandemic, which we all know that we have, all those things have created and count these moments have created situations that have really deepened our understanding of ourselves. And so each of these experiences in life have influenced who and what we are, and that foundation for really authentically connecting with others, whether they're like us or whether they're not like us. And so I love to take a deeper look into that lens. So we're going to talk through some of the messaging that's explained through childhood, potentially, some of the school experiences that we might have, some of the friendships that we might have, faith values that we might have. And all of these are different sources where you might have been influenced from teachers, peers, parents, media, and the way that we experience the world as children really can shape the connections we form as adults. So this can influence our roles at work. This can influence our roles at home. This can influence our roles within our family structure, and beyond. And a lot of this can be due to just small little things that happen in our lives. So one of the experiences, Darla, if you'll click the next, there you go. Thank you. School experiences, if a teacher didn't value your ideas, you might find it hard to speak up at meetings now. That might just be a one-off where you raised your hand and the teacher was like, well, anybody else have an answer? It could have just been a simple blip over. That might have pinged you right in the heart, and you've carried that unconsciously maybe throughout your life. And so you do find it hard now to speak up in meetings because of that one experience. Friendships, competitive or judgmental friendships. If you've ever had somebody that is just always trying to one up or to do it better than you, or to do it faster than you, or to do it stronger than you, those type of friendships, even if you're not working against them, those can happen naturally when we're younger, that we just are challenged by that. And so we might find it challenging to trust and collaborate with colleagues at that stage. And then faith and values, if you were potentially brought up in a faith community where only certain people deserve respect, that can happen in certain faith communities. So what does that look like? Okay, well then how do I step into that position? Do I deserve that? Am I valued enough? Am I valuable enough? Can I fill that position the way that that person could fill that position? And so really understanding how that messaging can influence you for future.
Yeah. And I love what you said about messaging. You know, messaging happens in our environment as we're growing up through life. It's a lens that we put over our eyes, and it's how we view the world around us, whether we are cognizant of it or not. It's so important to understand the value of how messaging impacts how we relate. And so, as Ryan was just saying, there are several different ways: school experiences, friendships, faith, and values. Well, I want us to just shift gears a little bit, and I want us to talk about what it might look like to have different lenses through our generational subsets. So I want to just walk through these with you about how each generation kind of has been raised and views the world, and also maybe their experiences and their strengths that they bring to the table. So we have our beautiful boomers, and we've got our age range there, 60 to 78. Now, boomers are known for being very direct. They're results driven. They are the executive backbone and infrastructure of reliability. So they're the folks that are, for the most part, at the helm of our larger corporations. They are the grandfather and patriarchs of our homes. Then you have our Gen Xers. They're going to range about 45 to 59 in age. Proud Gen Xer here. We tend to be independent, pragmatic. We have impeccable resilience. Yes, I can do it, and I can do it with both hands tied behind my back. And we have great adaptability to all environments. Then we have our beautiful millennials, ages 28 to 43-ish. They are going to be collaborative in nature, purpose driven. Our millennials thrive on relationships and crave creative outlets. Beautiful group of people. And then we have our amazing Gen Zs that are coming in, moving up the ranks. There are 18 to 27-year-olds. They tend to be very transparent. I have a few Z children of my own. They are digital first focused. They are social advocates, energetic, and growth driven. So in order to foster effective collaboration and communication and understanding in our own authenticity of who I am, we have to kind of decide what generation were we raised in? What was the messaging on our TVs? What were we exposed to out in the marketplace and at the grocery with our parents? So we have to learn about who we are so that we can adapt our communication strategies and we can really have a more collaborative experience within our homes, our communities, and our workplace.
Okay, I got to stop you right there because this is so funny. When you were talking about even in the grocery stores, when I talk with my daughters, when I was a mom of 3 daughters, I was the one that went to the grocery store by myself with all 3 kids. I had 2 buggies, one that had all 3 of the kids in it, one that I would put groceries in. Didn't even think about it because that's just what you did.
Yes.
And, it had it had its hiccups, to say the least. Just getting in and out of the car with 3 kids and groceries by yourself. So my daughters who use Amazon for everything and the grocery delivery to their door, I'm like, this is phenomenal. And they'll go like, how did you do that? I'm like,
Right.
Yes.
you will do what you have to do, but it's just so cool to see they have it easier in ways that I never even thought they could. We didn't have that choice.
That's right.
And that is one thing that I am grateful. There are some good things that did come out of the pandemic, and that is one of them, that we know we don't have to make everything so hard. We can make it easier. And I still get caught up in, I've got to do it this way, when sometimes there's an easier way to do it. And I'm not aware of it. So I appreciate what you're talking about, because communicating through the different generations is vital to being able to move forward instead of trying to do it all by yourself. Like you said earlier, in our office, we have, because we wear so many hats, and I feel like every woman watching, every person watching can relate to this. We shared a cute little picture of this guy saying, I can move this furniture by myself. And he's holding one end and he has the other end propped up on a rolling chair. So it's not anything about moving furniture. It's just like, I'm going to figure out a way to do it all by myself. I don't need you.
That's right.
Because we feel like if we ask for help, we're showing weakness or that we aren't capable. And we have all learned around here, it is okay to share the load, even if it's a light load. That way you can enjoy it, go further, and you communicate better, and you kind of lean on each other, and it does create a bond. It truly does. So thank y'all for sharing that.
Thank you, Darla, for that feedback. That's an excellent example of what it looks like to be introspective and to be self-aware. Darla, you very clearly gave us a great example of how you experience grocery shopping, how that's impacted how you view other people around you when they're doing their grocery shopping. And here with your daughter ordering everything online, and that's a great example. Thank you, Darla, for interjecting. So I want to move us to a messaging inventory. And I want to give you an example of my own personal, one of many internal messages that I have continued to work through in my life. So that just to get your brain working, and I want to give you maybe just a few minutes when I finish sharing my story, time to write down your own story. So when I was growing up, so the message for me has been through the years that being wildly successful is too hard and it is too scary and it is not for me. And so I hit this wall probably about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was hitting an all-time high in my business and just had abundance and was able to really manage my household with abundance for the first time ever. And I found myself hitting up against this wall, and I found myself doing some self-sabotage and really just trying to understand better what it is that I was afraid of. And so I had to go inside and ask myself some questions like, what are you afraid of? Why are you trying to sabotage you? Stop this, pump the brakes, jump ship. There were a couple of times where I wanted to quit. And what came forward to me when I was being very introspective and asking myself these questions is I was raised in a beautiful family. I had a parent who grew up in poverty and had a poverty mindset. And when we would go places, I would hear comments like, oh, well, they just live in a mansion. We don't live in a mansion. Oh, well, they have lots of money. They can spend an extra $2 on cream cheese, or whatever situation it was. And it was this concept that they are rich, we are not. That's for them, that's not for us. And along that whole mindset came this concept of they're better than us. They're hoity-toity is what I would hear. And it put this messaging within me that it's not okay to have a nice house. It's not okay to spend extra on cream cheese. It's not okay for us to have this abundant wealth and mentality. And so I hit a place in my business within about 2 years where I went from like 8,000 zero customers to 8,000 in about 2 years. And I reached that hard wall of fear and overwhelm and panic, because the little person inside of me was saying, your family's not going to accept you. This is not okay for you to be in this position. You're not them, right? They have the money. They have the mansion on the hill. They have the extra money for the cream cheese. And it caused me to realize I had started operating in that same messaging system through my business and through my relationships. So I had to walk myself through the connection growth approach, which we're going to point out to you and walk you through here in a minute. But I want to take just 30 seconds, a minute, and I want you to take a piece of paper if you can, and I want you to write an example down of a message that could have caused you to shrink back from walking in your authenticity, from owning your influence and impacting your home, your community, your business, your position in the world around you. Just take a few minutes. I want you to write your thoughts down. We're going to get back to it here towards the end.
I do want to go ahead and say thank you for sharing what you did, because I feel like a lot of us were raised the same way, especially if you're raised in a middle class family like I was. You pinch every penny. You have to save. You have to do the coupons. You have to do that because we never will have. That's not us. That's for those people. And I remember growing up with a similar loop playing through my mind, and then also hearing from other people who from hearing from someone who was not a very good influence in my life, but was a very strong presence in my life, was my parents, that kept saying, you're not smart enough. You don't need to try to do that. You need to let someone else do that. You just sit back and you let someone else do that because you're not. And even though, Cristy, in your mind, hey, I can do this, you're right. You will hit that wall of like, oh, was I just kidding myself? Can I really do this? Am I capable of that? What if they are right? What if my desire and my intelligence can only just go so far, and I just drop off the end of that cliff? So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you for being genuine in that.
Yes. And thank you for sharing your story too. This is how we grow, is we have to get curious and we have to be honest with ourselves and show ourselves compassion and grace.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Alexis shared the same thing, that she went through the same thing too. So thank you, Alexis. Yes. And if anyone else wants to put anything else in the chat to share, we would be very grateful for that. We're talking about being authentic. So
right.
Want to share anything.
And that's the whole, when we explain internal messaging, it is truly how we subconsciously in many ways view the world around us, and how we were raised. My parents were raised in the boomer generation, and they were taught hard things with financial impact. So it made sense to me now why my parent would have that type of mentality. But that's the beauty of our connection growth approach, is it empowers our influence. And so when we look at how our messaging impacts how we relate to others, the connection growth, it joins these two processes, that internal awareness I'm aware that this is now a message that I need to break down, work through, because it is directly impacting how I lead my business leaders, how I lead my team, how I serve my customers. And it's beautiful because today that this whole hour together is going to be focusing on how I process, how I can become authentically aware so that I can relate in a more productive and influential way in the world around me.
And so now we're going to take a closer look at implementing that connection growth approach into what we just discussed. So we discussed the barriers and understanding, identifying all those social barriers that are outside of us and how it has impact in us. And then also understanding that internal and generational messaging. And I loved how everybody shared. I mean, I have so many stories of my own that have continued to come forward. And I think that's the beauty of understanding your internal messaging, is that even you'll learn through the steps that we walk through, is even when you feel that pause or you feel that kind of gut wrench. I say when your water hose gets kinked all of a sudden and water's not flowing out of it, that's an internal like pause in your body. That means go home and do this work that we're about to do. And for me, it is such a reminder that you don't have to do it in that moment, but just if you're pinged over and over towards that one thing that you're like, oh, why did I feel that way? And so said that to me last week, or came up against that with another individual last week. Revisit it and walk through these steps. So we're going to walk through understanding how to implement our connection growth approach to walk you through some of these ways to move forward. So how do we implement these concepts into our work, our homes, our communities, the culture in which we have influence over, and to grow our authentic influence within us? And so I think that that's the one thing we have to realize, is that we are one person that can have this absolute ripple effect when we do that work. And so just be reminded every single day, there is power in you, and there's power in your voice, and there's power in your actions as you step forward. And I know that. So this concept that we're teaching will teach you how to have influence instead of being reactive. I can remember so many situations growing up, just learning before I ever did this work, how I was reactive. I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to win. I wanted to beat the person down, and I would walk away and not let them get the last word in. It was what I did. It was who I owned, who I wanted to be. And so understanding this work allows me to stand in that power and allow them to have the last word, and also walk away and come back and visit because I've done that step and I can circle back now. And so I love that piece of this, is that this will teach you how to lean in with that kind of empathy. So this is TRACE. It's an acronym that we defined on how we do it: trust, respect, awareness, curiosity, and engagement. So we'll look at the TRACE method through the lens of me, through the lens of I. And then each section, we will kind of deep dive into a self-focus, if you will, on each word and how we actually break it down so that you can really learn how we move through our connection growth approach. So we're going to start with trust, and this is built through empathy. And I know this is not new to a lot of you guys, especially if you've done work with, I know Mildred's been on here and Vitali's been on here too, and they speak so highly of these types of things within our office settings. So trust is built through empathy. And this is defined when we trust ourselves. I trust myself. I'm feeling XYZ. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling emotional. What is it that I can say to myself in that moment of how I'm feeling? And when we can explore our unique influence internally, there are parts of us, I like to refer to them as our inner child of all ages. So it could be my teenage years that come out in me, or it could be my adolescent years that come out of me. And that's just because I walk through so many different types of messaging, whether it be in my home, or whether it be from divorced parents, or whether it be from my school setting, coaches, mentors, etc. So just remember that all these can be shaped in life through our experiences as a child. And so put yourself in their position, or rather put yourself in your position. So oftentimes in the trust section, we'll put ourselves in other people's position. In this position, I want you to put yourself back into your position and say, I'm feeling this way because why? And this will be how we build trust through empathy, how it has impacted you as you've continued to walk through everything that you've walked through in life. So looking at our own experiences through a lens of empathy towards ourselves. Okay. So this can be long lasting appreciation towards who and what I am and why I operate the way that I do. And that is really trusting that authenticity that you were created to be and to do in this world. The next part of it is respect. R stands for respect. This is demonstrated through acceptance. So when we accept who we are going through a place of, I'm not judging where I am. I'm not judging what's happened to me. What I am doing is accepting it and also going to explore why I felt that way. So this is the work that we have to do inside of us first before we can have this situational awareness with the people outside of who and what we are. Why do I feel this way? Do I accept myself? Do I accept these feelings? Do I accept the experiences that I walk through in life? And the goal here is not to shame yourself, not to self-condemnation, come over you with everything, but to feel it in the moment and then to start building that acceptance towards why you're feeling this way. So that's the uniqueness planted inside of you. The reason why I feel this way is because it's unique to me. It's my experience. It's how I feel. So this is how I step forward in things. And we don't have to say that to anybody, but when we feel that and we understand that, then we can also understand why and how to have that respect towards us. So empathy and then that respect towards ourselves. The third portion of the wheel is awareness. And this is enhanced through introspection. And Cristy spoke of this earlier, just having that introspection on yourself. How am I experiencing this situation and why? Why am I experiencing this situation? The inner child of me sometimes wants to react because it doesn't feel like it's being heard. So a lot of times it wants to scream out loud in a meeting or whatever it is. What is it that's making me feel like I don't have a voice or position? And so really understanding better, how do I have this awareness towards this? And how am I experiencing this situation? Not how a colleague is, or not how another leader that I'm, directly answering to is, but how is Ryan experiencing this? And what's the message behind it? Really getting an honest look at ourselves and our experiences to better understand how I best step forward with that integrity towards who and what I am. Yeah. Not towards what was said, but how I am. Why am I feeling this way? And then, and only then, we can interact with others because we now have that awareness towards ourselves. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's not necessarily attack. It could be that somebody's coming out of a situation and that situation made them feel a certain way. And so the conversation yields into this negative conversation, if you will. So it can have a two-sided to this as well.
Yeah. So the next letter on Trace wheel is curiosity. And curiosity is fueled by exploration. This is one of my favorite parts of the work, is asking the question, in this example, to myself, what else do I need to know? I felt my feelings. I've shown empathy. Okay, I see that you're hurting here or that you're frustrated here. Then I have accepted my feelings are valid. Okay, I'm fully respecting myself and accepting my feelings for what they are. I've become aware. I'm asking, well, why am I feeling this way? Curiosity comes in and says, what else do I need to know? How do I get to these places with curiosity? And like Ryan just said, not shame, not guilt, but it's more of a treasure hunt where you get to lock hands, lock arm in arm with the inner children that are speaking out about something very important and say, what else do you need to tell me? What else do I need to know about how I am experiencing this situation? So curiosity leans towards those feelings and the parts of me that reacted and responded with such curiosity and wide-eyed wonder, just like we did when we were little and we went to a candy store for the first time. What else do I need to see and know? And how could this internal response be impacting my influence for good or for bad? So curiosity acts as a bridge. It helps to uncover where you are. and it bridges you to where you are called to be, right? By calling and standing in our authenticity, which we believe was set within us before the beginning of time and space. So it could look like this: asking a question that leads to deeper understanding within yourself. What do I need to learn more from this experience? What is the bigger picture here? And how is it affecting my ability to influence? And finally, the E in Trace is engagement. And engagement is fostered by an eagerness to learn. Engagement is choosing to step towards that part of me and engage fully, eyes full on. And there's a famous quote that says, "It's not a big deal. It's just who I am." Raise your hand if you've ever had, "It's not a big deal. It's just who I am." I actually accidentally do this to my kids. "Well, it's just who I am." And I'm like, "Bleh. I need to stop for a minute, and I need to engage that part," because when we dismiss the engagement part, eagerness to learn more, and to choose to step into engaging those parts of ourselves, we end up accidentally bypassing ourselves and bypassing our reaction by just saying, it's just who I am. And that's where we get stuck and we don't do the work, and we continue to have the same patterns repeat in our lives. Raise your hand if you have some repeating patterns that could use some curiosity and some engagement. So what would it look like if, instead of bypassing our reactions with justifications, "I did this because or even shame, I know better than to respond that way. I know I shouldn't be feeling mad. They didn't do anything wrong." We shame ourselves by accident. But what would it look like if we engaged with that process that we're talking through with Trace to connect with what we have discovered along this path, and connect and engage with that part of us? It's the voice within us. And it's an integral part of how we were created. So when we engage and we get eager to learn, this leads to an outward decision to learn so that we can engage with ourselves with compassion, with grace, with integrity, being true, and we can mirror that to the outside world, to those that are sitting across the table from us. So this can look like engaging in repair. It could look like sitting across the table from our little inner children and repairing parts of our story just by listening and being eager to learn, what was that like for you? And what do I need to know? And this is the truth of who we are today. It's engaging in that connection and creating a safe place for those parts within us to open up and communicate. "I do remember when you were 11 and we sat at that dinner table and this is what was said. And I remember how deeply it affected us and how it hurt us and caused us to feel afraid." Of course, you're feeling afraid now in this situation because it triggered that little part of you that feels the same way in this exact situation. So when we nurture this internal relationship and that sense of belonging, we can learn and grow and fully experience and know and walk in our unique giftings and our unique influence. So this is the wheel in totality here. Feel free to take a little screenshot of this. We have broken down each of the letters with their meanings, just to prompt you to understand a little bit as you're going through your day. And what we'd like to ask you to do here as we're wrapping up towards the end of our presentation is what you wrote down earlier in our messaging inventory. We want to encourage you to take what you learned and walk through step by step each of the parts of Trace on your own. When you have 5 or 10 minutes to carve out, maybe get a journal, a piece of paper, and really go through the trust, respect, awareness, the engagement, had something to say when you wrote down your internal message. And I know I've done that with my messaging and continue to use this tool on the regular, every day, every week, when I have some reaction or some emotion come over me that I need to look at and pay attention to. My goal is to walk in my authenticity. I am no good to anyone if I am not being true to who I was created to be and stepping forward in integrity, until I am honest about how I am self-relating and relating to those around me. So it's important for us I'm the first one to stand up and say, using Trace on a regular basis. And then once you write down the parts of Trace with your messaging inventory, I would like to just encourage you to move forward with boldness and humility and share it with someone that you trust. There's something beautiful about saying what we're learning and introducing those parts of ourselves in a vulnerable way that creates lasting growth and impact, but also it impacts the person across from you that you're talking to. So take some time this week and go through those trace options.
I was going to also say too, with this last slide that shows everything, it helps me to circle back on things because I know that I say things and step forward honestly, just in that true integrity. And sometimes when I'm feeling a little pushback from someone, it allows me to go home and say, was that me, or was I really feeling that from someone across the table? So it allows me to circle back with them and say, hey, I was feeling this in the meeting that we had the other day. I want to circle back on it. Did you feel a little, were you pushing back towards this? And sometimes it is a yes, and sometimes it's a no. And I'm like, okay, well, I just felt that way. So I wanted to circle back on it because after I left, I wanted to revisit, because I have gone home, and I didn't share that with them, but I had gone home and worked on, okay, why did I feel this way in that meeting? And so it does create that circle back moment once you go home and work through these steps, so you can revisit maybe a situation of anger or disconnect, if you will, to build that deeper sense of trust and integrity with another.
Yeah, that's good. That's really
One thing I'd like to share and emphasize, and thank you for what you're doing, is as women, we have we call it a gut instinct, that intuition.
Yes.
And we had about a year ago, we had a woman come on who works with special ops, and she said, do not ever ignore that.
That's
That
right.
instinct you have in you, if there's a red flag, uncomfortableness, or something, you check that. Don't ignore it. And she said, I have seen women in the South go, oh, it's okay. I want to be nice and polite. Stop that. I'm just going to give y'all permission right now. And what you've said right here is that when you have a feeling that something was off, there's a reason, and it. It's just you're so busy. Maybe you haven't calmed down enough to see, what is it? Is it the trust, the respect, the awareness, the curiosity, or the engagement? Where am I off on this? And I appreciate y'all emphasizing what someone had taught us a long time ago, that in this trace concept that you have developed, it is supporting what we have always been trying to say here in Momentum, that your value is you and
Yes.
what you bring to the table. So don't ignore it, don't downplay it, and don't pass it by. Oh, well, because I'm guilty of that. When you said that a minute ago, Cristy, I am so guilty of, oh, well, everybody does that. Isn't everybody capable? Isn't that how everybody responds? And it's not. Each of us have our own instinct. We have our own path of how we see things, and we have our own lens, like you said earlier, and it's for a reason. And so my encouragement right here for everyone listening, and thank you all for being here, is to take what they have showed us today and really take a few minutes today, even as a team, in your own house, maybe even with your kids or your spouse, and go through this. This is something that's very valuable. And if you get into that habit, which is what I'm going to ask y'all to be my accountability partners and help me to stay on track with this, when you feel like something's off, or you even feel like, yes, I nailed it, go back and say, okay, why did I nail it? What did I continually do? And give yourself a gold star. Give yourself that thumbs up that you did have a win on following through with all of this. Thank you so much. Does any
Darla, I wanted to add too on this trace concept. It is so diverse in that we can use it for we can do it for you, for the person. We can run our conversations sitting across from someone. How can I trust by showing them empathy? How can I show them respect by accepting where they are? So it can be internal, it's also external, and then even from the view of a company. How can the company build trust by showing empathy towards our contractors? How can the company as a whole respect by accepting what's happening here in the situation? So it's very diverse and can be used on multiple different platforms.
Well, thank you so much. And that's what I was going to ask you. Did you want to share any other specifics or walk us through anything of how we could actually put this into action?
So we talked about walking through my scenario. I don't know how we're doing on time, Darla. I certainly don't want to go over. We have a few
We
more
got a few more minutes.
So quickly, if I were going to look at my internal messaging from my childhood and about me being concerned about being wildly successful and it being scary or too hard, I have walked through that scenario with myself. So first, I want to build trust with the part of me that's speaking out and panicking. And I want to show that part of me empathy. I see that you're feeling very afraid and you want to quit. And I see you. I get why you want to quit. And I don't judge you for that. I want to lean into what's going on here. So then I would respect that part of me that is coming forward by fully accepting it. I don't have to understand it in that step. All I have to do is say, I accept your pain, I accept your fear, and I accept your desire to bolt and get out of this fast. So then I would move into awareness and I would say, okay, I want to take some time, carve out 5 or 10 minutes to do some real honest introspection about that part of me that is coming forward. Okay. That is my 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old self who's heard this message over and over again in the backseat of my vehicle, driving down the road, looking at a house or going to the grocery, like I said, with the cream cheese example. So I want to just get real. I want to have I personally get a journal out and I say, oh yes, I remember that. Yes, I remember. Yep. We were sitting in the car. I'm introspective about how we got where we are in that idea. Then this is where I get really excited because I get to be curious and I get to move forward and explore further. Okay, little Cristy, what else do you want to tell me about this? Oh, well, the what else is not only am I feeling inadequate, not only am I feeling afraid, but the what else for me was my family won't accept me. I won't be accepted if I'm successful because I will be like them who are better than thou, hoity-toity, better than the rest of everybody else because I have this financial abundance. So that was the curiosity step for me in that scenario. And then the engagement, I had to choose in that moment to be eager to learn, not bypass and say, it's not a big deal. You're being ridiculous. Everybody has money and it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It's just who I am. I can't help that I became successful, right? We can bypass ourselves, shame ourselves. I shouldn't be feeling this way. But instead, I lean towards that eagerness to learn and I start to engage in repair with that little girl inside of me. Hey, I want to talk about what happened. And you're right. I remember when we were going there and I remember hearing that message, but I want you to see that 40-year-old Cristy, look where we are today, sis. Look what we've done. We've done this because we've worked hard. This is how we got to where we are. We were consistent. We showed up every day. We loved on our people well. We sold them the product. We delivered the product. We followed up on the product. We did all that we needed to do to get here. This was not something that we're just like, oh, we're just better than everybody else. We worked hard to serve hard, to love hard, and to sell what we believe in so we can stand and we can repair this part of our hearts and know that it is okay to move forward with integrity and authenticity in this.
I love that. And I love also how what you just walked through goes back to what you said. It is a bridge from that voice that you heard then to say, no, this is how this really looks. And let's walk across this bridge to this side where there is healing and where there is a shift in your mindset that's more positive and more abundant and just the better version of yourself.
Yes.
You can use that portion of authenticity towards power instead of neglecting that portion of you. And really it refines who and what you are. It no longer defines who you are, but it refines that person in you and you can step forward in power and speak to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I did go ahead and go over to the screen. Is there something you'd like to share with me about your QR code here?
Yeah, so this is the QR code for Contact Us. And then the next slide, you'll see this, you can reach us anywhere, email, LinkedIn, or via phone. And then also, if you scan the QR code, it'll directly download to your phone.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching at Momentum Leaders.